Is there more to quantum mechanics than wave functions? Meet the all-knowing density matrix, your key to unlocking mixed states and quantum evolution. So in this point of the chapter, we're now dealing with the density matrix and its formalism. And in doing so, we wish to prove certain properties of it, namely the ones listed here, which we'll go into more detail in the actual write-up. But we have a list of properties here that are very useful to us, and although certain things are less, certain things are more. So we'll see that in a second. And in B, we wish to show that the time evolution of the density operator is governed by the equation where we have IH bar d rho hat, which is a density matrix, dt, is equal to the commutator brackets of the Hamiltonian with the density matrix. That's pretty cool. This is the Schrödinger equation expressed in terms of the density matrix itself. Now, there's a lot to be said here, so why do we care? Well, in the density matrix formalism, it has a lot of power. The density matrix encodes all accessible information about a quantum system, providing a complete statistical description that is particularly useful for ensembles or partial information scenarios and is essential for describing subsystems of entangled quantum particles and systems, even when the complete system is in a pure state. So think about the quantum computing world where you have systems of qubits, right? Then you need a density matrix, okay? But that is exactly what leads to the challenge for all of us, is that in some aspects, this leads to more complexity and computability problems. And that's what I was alluding to in reading the statement of Part A. Although the density matrix formalism gives us a lot, it also takes us a lot too, depending on what we're looking for. Although, notably, this is best for things like the expectation value, and we'll see what that is, I think, in this property here. So hang on for that. That being said, this is a pretty quick problem, so pretty much everything's in the video, but if you want the PDF, it's free for you. Just go get it from the Patreon link or comment, and I'll send you the link to the post itself, and you'll be good to go. That being said, before we jump into today's topic, you should know that my goal is to break down complex physics concepts using exercises from these top books. If that sounds like something you'd enjoy, hit the subscribe button and join us in exploring the universe. Now, let's get density. Okay, so outside of obnoxious attempts at puns, in stop 1, we have part A here, and the first property of interest is the idempotent property. And for this, we can use the direct proof. So starting from equation 1217, where we have the square of the operator itself, and then we're trying to prove that it's equal to the operator. So the square indicates that we need to apply this thing twice, hence blue and green. Now, the actual definition of the density operator is this equation 1214, which is really the projection operator onto said states of psi. Okay. Now, if you remember from chapter 3, this is nothing more than the projection operator from one given intake onto the bases of another state. Okay. So that's pretty cool. Now, what we realize here is that while we're in this, we could drop the brackets and we see that we have psi and psi here connecting, psi and psi color-coded by blue and green. And now this forms an inner product. So the projection of this onto this, right, is what we're looking at. And what we see is that the inner product, assuming that the wave functions are normalized as they should be in quantum mechanics, or the state vectors rather, not wave functions, but the state vectors, this should be normalized to 1. So therefore, that goes away. We multiply by 1. It doesn't matter. Multiplicative identity, we're good. And then we see that we end up with the form of psi and psi with the ket and bra respectively. And that is the projection operator and therefore the density operator once again. That's pretty cool. So not too hard, but a lot to keep track of. And again, I should emphasize that this is for pure states. So when we get to mixed states, this setup's going to look a slight bit different, and we'll just have to be careful. But for your pure state, something that we know of like the infinite square well, the harmonic oscillator, although we could be in some linear combination of any of those states, we're not mixing states from other systems. So we're in pretty good pure states there. So all of this section here works for pure states. Soon we will get to mixed states, and there is a distinctive difference. Now for the Hermitian property, we can use a direct proof as well. This is the property from 1218. So again, what is quantum mechanics without being Hermitian? We have to have it, okay? And the note to solve for this one is that from linear algebra, we know that the product that is then transposed is the transpose of the product, right? So AB to the T is equal to BT AT. This has to be done for dimensional analysis, and it works out well. Okay, direct proof can show that too. But what we want here is that rho dagger needs to be implemented, okay? And then we have to show that rho dagger is equal back to rho. So applying the dagger to the bracket here from the definition, we're good to go. Now, if we want to put the dagger on each of these matrices or state vectors, whatever they might be, we have to go ahead and take B, and this is the dagger on it now, because remember, dagger is conjugate transpose, and then A to the dagger, okay? So we're in the same form from this thing here. Good to go. Now, actually applying the dagger tells us that we can take the adjoint here since we don't have scalar coefficients on us. And that tells us that we are now turning this bra into a ket and this ket into a bra. And once again, we get that this is the density operator. So we're good to go. That's awesome. All right, coming down the main line then. We are still left with the trace property, and this is where it gets really cool for some certain things that we can calculate from the trace itself. Now you might remember that from the Pauli matrices, the trace that were sumless traces or traceless matrices, the diagonals sum to 0. This is a weird property, and certain properties of these traces we like. In particular, if you remember from linear algebra, traces and determinants play together in what is a consistent system, so these things are useful to us. That being said, this is property from equation 1219, and we're saying that all the trace of the density operator equals 1. Now we need to prove it. So by definition, if we're looking for the trace, that's the sum of all the main diagonal terms. So we're summing all the terms that have matching indices, as we see here, blue and green. Now, we know that in order to have matching indices, this needs to be within an inner product of I and I, blue and green respectively, with the operator right in the middle, okay? And that comes from equation 1216. That's just another way of expressing it. And since we know that the operator here is the outer product or the projection operator onto the state itself, what we see here is that once we put this in here, E acting on psi in blue, psi acting on E in green, we see that we get a couple inner products here, so that's perfect. Now remember that these inner products here are scalars, right? So let's write that out. This is a scalar quantity, right? It's just a number now. So since it's just a number, I can switch this term with this term. Boom, boom. That's what we see here. From switching it, we can decompose that inner product, and then we could have psi here with the outer product and psi here. As a result, anytime I project from one basis onto another, but they're the same bases, all I get is 1. And that's the identity for every single element I. That's pretty cool. And since I have the identity here, it doesn't do anything to the state vector, so you just get the state vector itself. And then you see you have psi and psi again, and again, we're assuming normalized, so that is 1. So we just showed that the trace of this density operator in matrix form is 1. That's fascinating. So there's a lot of moving parts here, and I should note that, for the record, when we substitute in the definition, that's still equation 1214. But nonetheless, for the record, this stuff is going to come up randomly in context, and this formulation happens a lot, and this trace is just one of the steps you can use to check it. Okay, so right now, what do you think about all this? It's a lot to take in, but nothing too crazy, and unfortunately, this formalism starts to take more value as you get into higher level classes, especially when you want to talk about the field theories, because then you could talk about element-wise and tensor-wise. So this thing has a lot more value there than just dealing on the ground level stuff with the wave functions. So drop a comment with your thoughts, let us know what you think. And now we'll get on to our last property before showing the new Schrodinger equation. Okay, so this is our last one and arguably one of the most important to have. is that for the expectation value of an observable A, we see that equation 1220, the last property that we need to prove, is given by, well, if I want the observable A and the expectation value, that is all I need to do is find the trace of the density operator with A. And we have to remember that this makes sense when we talk about what is the matrix element itself, which is nothing but the inner product with A acting on one of the state vectors. So we want to be on the main diagonal because then we're acting on the same state, things like that, and that's pretty darn cool. Okay, so writing this and now instead of a trace form but summation form, the main diagonal summing over I, so we're doing II pairs for both of these. Now this is a product, so we could split this up into the matrix definition of multiplication, which is sum over I, sum over j, where the inner dimensions j are matching and the outer dimensions are what our resulting product is. So these two inner dimensions must match. These two are the results we get from matrix multiplication. Okay, so from there then, it's pretty easy just to want to segment in, and now we could substitute in definitions, particularly the definition for the A operator, okay, is given by, well, if I want the operator in terms of J and I need to put the bases on them, okay? And again, since we know we have the projection ij, that's ei here, ej here with the projection operator here, and this projection is the density matrix projection, so we're good. We're projecting the state onto the matrix form itself. Okay, and then from here we see that this is scalar, so I could rearrange this just like we did in the trace example and put this blue term on the end, and that's what we see here. Now from there, I can decompose my psi inner products. So I have green psi over here. Now I look at my bases vectors here, so ej, ej, and then A operator there, ei, ei with the blue psi here. And once again, the outer product with the same matching bases leads to I. So multiplying by I and I here, don't do anything to the A hat here, because that's the whole point of identity. So we end up with psi A hat psi, and that is the expectation value. So we just showed all these wonderful properties in a pretty quick, cohesive manner, okay? Now again, let me emphasize, this is for pure states, not mixed states, which are quite different. So keep that in mind. All right, so on to part B. Now, if we want to show that the density matrix can indeed bring us back to what we know to be true from Schrödinger's equations, we can reformulate that. Of course, we know that we need to start with a time derivative, okay? So this is why we have the time evolution. So IH bar times d by dt, normally we would have the psi here, but since the density matrix and operator are taking the spot of the psi for the states, we can go ahead and put the rho here. Now, when we plug in the definition for rho, this common one that we see from 1212 or 1214, okay, what we realize is that we have a product of vectors here, okay? As a product that are time dependent, assumably, we need to take a product rule. So derivative of the blue, leave the green alone, plus leave the blue alone, take the derivative of the green. We see that that's highlighted with the dot notation, purposely color-coded it red, so to make it differentiate. And then from there, we need to distribute the IH bar, so we do that pretty quickly, okay? And now we're in a setup where we can take from Schrödinger's equation and substitute in. So from Schrödinger's equation, we know that if I have IH bar on the wave or the state vector psi with its derivative, that's equal to the Hamiltonian of the same state vector without the derivative. So that's what we see in blue. Now, consequentially, taking the adjoint of this, again the dagger, we see that we take the conjugate here and turn the ket into a bra, so that's why we have a negative sign there. And then we flip this over again with the Hamiltonian being a Hermitian, we're fine. So that being said, we're good to go in all of this front. Now we just have to be careful with the substitutions. Namely, this negative sign is going to have to get booted to this side with the Hamiltonian. So rearranging our equation here, we see we have IH bar with the blue dot, or blue state with the red dot, and then psi here. Then we have the psi blue, and then the green with the dot, but IH bars moved into it. Now we see that we booted this negative over, so when we substitute it in, we get a negative here with green and green. Then this blue here goes to blue H and blue psi without the time derivative. So everything's coming together, okay? Now we can rearrange, put this negative in the front here, push it outside. Now we see we have something of the form H bar with the density minus density H bar. So substitute in the density matrix definition. H rho minus rho H. And now we see we get the Hamilton or the commutator bracket with the Hamiltonian and the density matrix, thus proving that this is the Schrödinger equation with the matrix formalism. That's freaking awesome. And this goes back to how important this commutator bracket is. Because if they commute, right, then we have this equals 0 and there is no time evolution, right? So that's very important to us. We evolve at a constant, right? We're not really that crazy of a time dependency and it becomes a real quick equation to solve. Okay. Versus if they have some IH bar on them, then we have something back and forth with another thing there, and we're good to go. Okay. So very important to us, and we'll see an example of constructing this density matrix in just a second for, I think, our next problem, actually. So we'll get to that shortly. All right. That was fun. Pretty quick video as far as, just showing everything, but definitely a lot of importance for anybody looking to study this more deeply. That being said, if this video got you thinking, imagine what's coming next. Subscribe and join our weekly community or join our community for weekly insights into the world of physics. There is so much more to uncover, and I'd love to have you along for the journey. I also want to take a moment to thank my incredible Patreon supporters. Your support is truly the backbone of this channel. It's because of you that I'm able to keep creating these videos and diving deep into the fascinating world of physics with everyone. Your contributions make a real difference in helping me bring these concepts to life, and I'm so grateful for each of you for believing in this journey. And if anyone else is interested in joining the channel and supporting the channel and joining our Patreon community, you can check out the link in the description below. Together we can keep exploring the wonders of science and discovering even more amazing things. As always, thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious.